verbally to God and to his friends. I don't believe that Job here was sinning at all, because he spoke his feelings and he spoke what was known, and God knew how he was feeling. Why not tell God how you are feeling? The psalmist did it. That's why we like the Psalms when we're going through times of grief. It's because the psalmist comes before the Lord and he simply says, God, this is the way in which I feel, and he allows all of the hurt and the bitterness and the disappointment to spill out. And why not? Because God is the beautiful, wonderful counselor, and you know something? God already knows that it is in the heart, and he can take it. Tell him. This past week I heard of a woman who was praying, and she was living with a man who was an alcoholic, and she was praying out loud, and he was close by, and she said, "Oh God, you know that my husband is a drunk." And the man rebuked her and said, No, don't say that. Just tell him I'm sick. Well, when you're talking to God, you can tell him what the truth is, because he knows it anyway. Last time I gave you 4 lessons that I said I wanted you to remember for the rest of your life. I hope that you remember them for at least the last 7 days. What I'd like to do now is to give you 3 more to add to that 4, and to give you a total of 7 lessons. And these 3 can be added to the last 4, which you wrote down so judiciously last week. Lessons. Number 1, notice that godly people are sometimes the most sorely tested. They are sometimes the most sorely tested. What does the Bible say about Job? He was an upright man, blameless, and he served God and turned away from evil. And what does he do in verse 5 of chapter 1? But he offers a sacrifice in behalf of himself and his children. It almost seems as if at the very time when Job was reaffirming his commitment to God, it is then that tragedy broke loose. I hope that you have lived long enough to realize that you cannot tell a person's spirituality by evaluating how many trials come into their lives. There are people in this congregation this morning whom I know, and many of you have shared with me and with other members of the pastoral staff the incredible turmoil and anguish that you are going through. And all of us know that even though you don't know it, when we look into your faces, we see Christ. And it's not because you are not following God. It is not because God is trying to even some kind of score. It is sometimes true that those who are righteous suffer the most. One day Jesus was walking in Israel, and they said to him regarding a man who was born blind, "Who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus said, "Neither, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him." There is a work of God that is taking place in the lives of those of you who are suffering disproportionately. I say that because many of us have not suffered nearly as much as you are suffering. Our day may be coming. But suffering, when you look at it, is haphazard. You can't make sense out of the pattern. Godly people sometimes are the most sorely tested. Job was suffering not because he was unrighteous, as a matter of fact, but because he was righteous. And that's why he attracted the attention of God and the devil in the dialogues that we are now privy to. So first of all, godly people often are most sorely tested. Secondly, I want you to notice that good and adversity come from the same hand. They come from the same hand. Chapter 2, and what is it here? Verse 10. Job says to his wife, "Shall we indeed accept good from God and not adversity? Why is it that we would only accept one and not the other, and recognize that both come from God?" One day, when we came home from vacation, I was speaking to my family, and I said, "You know, God was so good to us. We drove so many thousands of miles. We had no flat tires, no car trouble, no accidents. And just as the words came out of my mouth, it dawned on me, let's suppose we had had an accident or a flat tire or some tragedy. Would that now have meant that God wasn't good? If you have that theory that God has to always be giving you good things, and I put good here in quotes, in order for him to be good, then the time will come when you will believe that God is evil. Job said, we accept good from his hand. We must also recognize that there is adversity that comes from his hand, and both of them come from a good God. They come from a hand with nail prints.
Well, this is Pastor Lutzer. My friend, if all that you see in your adversity is sorrow, if all that you see is the devil, you are missing out on the opportunity of seeing God. I speak to you today in your sorrow, in your need. Look to him, because he'll be there for you even as he was for Job.
Thank you, Dr. Lutzer. Erwin Lutzer has just wrapped up part 2 of God, I've Lost Everything. Another message in his series, God, Why Me? The Story of Job. Running to Win comes to you from the Moody Church in Chicago. This 8-part series can be yours on CD as our thank you when you give a gift of any amount to support Running to Win. Just call us at 1-800-215-5001. That's 1-800-215-5001. Ask about God, Why Me? Online, go to offerrtw.com. That's offerrtw, all one word, .com. Or write to Running to Win at Box 11174, Chicago, Illinois 60611. This is Dave McAllister. Monday, the apparent injustice of suffering. Join us then for more from the life of Job on our next Running to Win.